Hey everyone, this is George Kroos for IMMOOC episode number 4. I'm with Katie Martin as always, and we're really excited about Kara Welty joining us today. I'm actually not just up because I'm wearing Blue Jays because they're going to beat the Rangers tonight, so I'm pretty pumped for that. And so we try to make sure there's a lot of stuff going on today, presidential debate, football games, basketball game or baseball games. And so hopefully you can find some time. But if you missed us now, we look forward to connecting with you after. As always, Katie, most of you know who she is, but I'm going to turn over to Kara. Kara, we're really excited to have you. Can you actually tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do? Her smile is just stuck there. I don't know if she's okay. This is off to a great start. Kara is actually just kind of actually stuck there with her face smiling, and she's coming back on. Hey, Kara, there you are.
Hey, it kicked me off. Okay, I'm back.
Hey,
I'm back.
Sorry, we were just talking about you, about how awesome you are. So can you please give people just a brief synopsis of what you do and who you are?
Okay, so my name is Kara Welty. I am a mentor teacher and a technology integrationist at Independence, so it's near the Kansas City, Missouri area. So over the summer, our school was renovated and we were blessed enough to have one-to-one with technology. So right now we're just focusing even more with the technology, even more than that with just the mindset and the learning and just taking innovation to the next level. So it's pretty exciting stuff going on.
So Kara, tell us a little bit about your work, and especially because I know I've known you for a little while now, and I know that you entered a new school, you came in as a new person, you're kind of given a position. Tell us a little bit about that work and how you're going about it, especially being new to a school community.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we always talk about how kids, I know you've written about this plenty of times, George, when kids are in a new school or a new setting and how nervous they get. And that's how I was, honestly. I'm a very energetic and outgoing person, but I moved 3.5 hours away. I used to live in St. Louis and I live in Kansas City. So for this opportunity, it wasn't just for me with the career, it was just being in a whole new spot where I didn't know anything. So for here, I just was nervous that with this role as a mentor teacher and also helping with technology, are people going to come to me? Am I going to be, having to force myself on people? I was really nervous about all these questions. And it's just been really amazing how it's kind of all unfolded. And not to plug your book, it's amazing, but I'm going to plug it. And over the summer, we did a Voxer chat that I led about the innovator's mindset. So these questions really helped led us to start talking about relationships and get to know more about each other first. And then in addition to that, we started diving into kind of where everyone fell in their belief system and really their mission and what they wanted to do in their classroom and beyond, and just to see their dreams. And your book was a perfect guide for that. So after we kind of started that, my worries kind of started to ease, because after people started seeing my perspective and I started seeing theirs and we started building that friendship, all of my worries kind of fell to the side because people just start naturally having conversations with you that, how about this idea? Or what do you think about this? So a lot of my work and what I do is I go in classrooms. So I really believe in the co-teaching model. So I really go in classrooms, we co-teach together. And before we start teaching, we also plan together beforehand. I go to collab sessions with grade level teams or individual teachers, and we build off those learning and questions. And it's so amazing, all of the things that I'm able to be a part of, and just to see so many different staff members and to get to know all the students in the school. It's been so amazing for me. I love it.
So, Kara, going into the role of a mentor teacher and a coach is very different a lot of times from being in the classroom. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you've learned and some of the strategies that have been helpful for you to connect with adults beyond kids in the classroom?
Oh, that's such a good question. I feel that I really learned just from my own perspective of being a teacher and now being in other people's classrooms, just how vulnerable it is as a teacher, whether it's me or them. If I'm in their classroom and it's their community, and I've really made sure to get to know those teachers and to, even if I'm not collabing, just to hang out and be in the classrooms and to get the vibe and sense of what's going on and just to see the amazing stuff. Everyone has that fear of being vulnerable and am I good enough? And they worry about perfection. And there's this really good book by Brene Brown over Rising Strong, and she talks about, I see you shaking your head, you've probably read it, Katie. Yeah. It's amazing. And she is a staff researcher and a professor, and she talks about how everyone is so scared to be vulnerable, and they're so scared of being perfect. But in that mentality, you start to get anxiety, and it leads to all these different complications. So I really just try to put myself in their shoes and realize also I'm in a vulnerable position, because I'm having to be in my A game just as they are, because I have to be in so many different classrooms and they have to be in their A game every single day. So we're both in vulnerable positions. So I try to be that yes person, that there's too many critics and there's too many just in the world, that if someone comes to with an idea, we're so quick to always say, well, what about this? Or have you thought of it this way? And although nothing can replace hard work ethic and pushing thinking, we also have to be careful about when we push the thinking, and also when we just sink in and just tell people, that was amazing. I love what you did. That was marvelous. I really love how you talk with students. And just those little observations, I think, makes a big difference. I mean, we can all think at the top of our head the last time we had an idea to someone, or someone said something to us that maybe came off wrong. Or if we come up with something, like, what do you think about this? And people sometimes shoot down ideas. And I try to think about that and just be like, yes. Because when's the last time you've had an idea that you shared with someone and they're like, yes, that's amazing. So I really try to think about that, because I know how that feels for myself, and I know how likewise that feels for teachers as well.
I was listening to a podcast I was listening to. It's Jalen Jacoby. It's a basketball podcast, and it's interesting, the connection of what they talk about, what you were just talking about. And one of the quotes Jalen Rose always says is, happiness is a function of expectations. That when the expectations that you actually have for yourself is actually directly correlated to how happy you are. Are you meeting what you expect to do? And the higher the higher your expectations are, sometimes it's harder to be happy. And that's kind of an interesting thing in what you're talking about. And the other thing that I really like that you talked about, Kara, is that when you came into the organization, you didn't start where you wanted people to be. You started where they're at. And I think that's a huge difference. What great leaders do is that, how do they actually both push and pull? One of the things that I'm wondering about, as you coming in, you're new to the community, you're probably like highly revered, it's like, oh, now Kara's going to come in and she's awesome and she does all these other things. How do you actually show some vulnerability in your own work? How do you actually model that you're still growing and you're still developing?
That's also a really good question. You guys picked up some good ones.
We only ask good questions, Kara.
I'm figuring that out now. That's so perfect, because I'm
Nope, there she goes again. Katie, tell me about that with you, though. I don't know where Kara's gone, and I don't know, her feed keeps cutting out. So, and it's always like stuck on a face if you're watching this live broadcast. I know, how do you actually do this, and how do you model this too? Like, how do you actually connect in that way?
Sure, being vulnerable. I think we were just talking about this, asking questions and not assuming that you know all of the right answers, or you know everything. I think a lot of times we forget to show this process. And when people are successful, they can come in and say, oh, 2-3 years ago, I really struggled. But I think in real time, we need to talk about how we struggled and what didn't work. I just presented last week, and some of my team members were there. And so, I was asking them for feedback and asked them to share what they thought and how I can improve. And I think that's really important, because I wanted them to see us as a team rather than them always getting feedback, that they also can give feedback, and that I'm also growing and putting myself out there to think about how I can always be better too.
Here's something I want to ask you, though, when you talk about that feedback. So how do they actually know that you're taking their feedback and that you're doing something with it?
That's a really good question.
We'll get right back to you, Kara. We're deep in a conversation, but we'll get back to you in a second. So we're just talking to Katie, and so she's talking about getting feedback from her staff. And how does she know if they give her feedback, she's actually implementing what they're talking about?
So we try and be really transparent about that. And so just recently, someone gave me feedback on a presentation. And so I made sure to change the presentation, show how we implemented that feedback, and then have conversations about it. Something else is we always, when we have our team meetings, we sit down with a new article, and we have a protocol where we're all reflecting and sharing our thoughts and pushing back on each other. So it's kind of all of us at the table instead of one person telling someone what they think. So I really believe those are important aspects too. It's not just asking for feedback, but modeling your process of thinking and being vulnerable to someone pushing back on your ideas and really supporting that and doing the same thing to them.
And going back to you, Kara, going back to the question that we asked, and sorry, I'm blaming all the internet issues that I'm actually doing this from a hotel room. So I'm sure this is the reason why we're actually having issues today. So how do you, as coming into a new community, how do you actually model some of that learning and growth and some of that change when people might see you as a superstar and not actually see the journey that it took for you to get where your thinking is at and what your skill level is at? How do you get people to see that through that process?
She's thinking.
She's thinking again. I honestly have no idea what's happening here, so we apologize if you're missing stuff. Kara has so much to say, but as soon as I ask her the question, as soon as she's about to start talking, it actually pauses out. One of the things that I'll talk about while we're waiting for Kara to come back, and we'll probably just go to the question part with her because we're almost out of time for the 10 minutes here. When we actually look at, pushing our own learning, one of the things that I just started this weekend, and actually I would say is because of the IMMOOC community, was I actually started my own YouTube channel, and I started it to, do short little leadership stories and anecdotes. And I'll tell you, I speak all over the world. I speak to huge audiences, and I'm sitting in a hotel room, feeling ready to vomit, going through this process. What will people think of this? I'm going to get some nasty comments. The thing is that you can be kind of scared of that. You're like, oh, I want tons of people to see this, but then you worry that if tons of people see it, that also invites tons of trolls, right? It is kind of an interesting dynamic of what we're actually happening. It's there, but it's kind of interesting about how much influence the community actually had on me to actually make that, to try something new, to push my learning. It wasn't just, by myself. It was seeing people take risks. And I think that when you watch people willing to take risks, willing to try different things, willing to connect in meaningful ways, you're more apt to doing that as well. Kara, every time we ask you a question, you're about to start talking, it literally stops right then. And we still can't hear you, so I have no idea what's going on. Katie, can we hear you?
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
I have no idea what's going on with you, Kara. Just kind of, we'll get back to Kara. I'm just going to see if I can get your audio going. Katie, can I just ask you about the little meme activity and kind of what you saw this week when we actually had people making memes?
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope you got to see it. I curated all of them and put them up on the highlights. It was really fun to see people's ideas and how they contributed in new ways. I think I saw a few people who were saying that they were a little anxious about it, but definitely wanted to be part of the MOOC, and so went and challenged themselves to create a meme. And it's a different medium and it's a different way of thinking. So I think some people felt really comfortable in this and felt really excited to be able to share their thinking and the way that they connect with people, while other people were a little bit more timid. But I saw so many different examples and ideas that really pushed my thinking. And I think that it helped me see what was really resonating with people. So I love that there's different ways of connecting. And I know that there's been some people who have gone above and beyond even the memes to really connect with people in different ways. We have a Padlet out there that people are sharing examples, and we have some different vlogs and different ways of interacting and connecting with people beyond just a simple blog or sharing ideas on Twitter and Facebook that have been really fun. And I want to just touch too on that whole process. George was mentioning starting a new YouTube channel and pushing himself to think in different ways. But I also think that it's really important, this being vulnerable, is to show that process and not wait till it's perfect. So a lot of people will say, I want to try out this new video. I'm going to make sure it's perfect before I share it with anybody. And I think George, more than anybody, models for us trying out new things. I laugh when I see him trying out Facebook Live on an airplane. Like, really, that's where you needed to start and try it out. But there's different ways that you're very open and about the learning that I think. Hey, for other people to try new ways too.
Hi guys, for the millionth time, popping in and out.
Okay, well, we're gonna actually start in the question part of the question. So Kara's gonna stay with us, so we're gonna still be able to learn from her. And so the first thing we're gonna focus on is this idea of actually how do we actually focus on strengths-based leadership. So this is a huge concept of what we were talking about in the work that I'm doing. It's actually how do you, and Kara was talking about this beautifully before she got interrupted, is how she actually tapped in to what people are already doing. So your thoughts on strengths-based leadership and how crucial that is to what we do in education.
That was one of my favorite parts about your book, and it's strength-based leadership is an idea that's brought up time and time again. If you search and if you really read different articles, and even the Gallup polls that is done, it just to help get other employees to different organizations is they look for the strengths. So I really love that part in your book, and it's one of my favorites that I noted. And for me, it's as far as strengths-based leadership, it's not about having their strengths, my strengths. I think sometimes we think of that and strengths-based leadership, and we think of how can I have that other person be more like me? Or how can I bring that in them? And because we're naturally drawn to people that are similar to us. And I try to go into it with an open mind and see people for who they are and what they offer. And I really try to bring that to the table and to give them compliments and to write little handwritten notes to say, I really like how you did this. And it's amazing to me that some of the traits that other people have that I just am in awe of, and I just learn so much from them, and I just sit back and patience and just the compassion and other things that educators show in different ways that may be different from me, but it's still amazing in the way they approach it. I really try to handle it that way, where I notice them for who they are rather than what I want to see. And it's really phenomenal when you give someone a compliment based on their strengths and you really have them join in and lean in with you and whatever the work is that you're doing. Because so many people that I've talked to, even at my school and other schools, my last school that I worked at, was I would say, you are so good at X, Y, or Z. And sometimes people look at you like they're shocked, like they've never thought of that about themselves, or no one's ever said that maybe, or whatever the situation is. And it's just amazing to see how different people can light up the second you bring that to their attention. And I just think that creates such a culture where people feel valued and appreciated. And it's more than just friendly conversations where it's like, hi, how are you in the hallway? It's deep relationships where you know each other, you know different teachers, you know what they stand for, you know their strengths. And when you know their strengths, you can pull them in and they can pull you in and you can work together for a team that can be unmatched.
That is awesome. It makes me think, am I getting feedback? It makes me, a friend of mine would say, do you see me? Do you know me? Or will you grow me? But people have to be seen first, and they have to be, people know that you see who they are, you know their strengths, and then you can grow them. But you have to see who they are first. And I think it also reminds me of this notion that you can focus on people, you have a language, and you have strengths rather than deficits, which is something we've done in school for far too long, and highlight people for what they really and grow them.
I love that. I love that. And it reminds me of what you said last week as far as loving people and being compassionate and just loving people, building them up. And I really believe in this ideology where be the fountain and not the drain. And if you help other people feel fantastic about themselves and realize their worth, it just, what you can give back will always be brought back to you in more ways than you can ever imagine. And I feel that same goes with kids or students. Often we see ideas or people saying on Twitter or in person that, you know, make sure you tell students at your school that I'm so happy that you're here. And I think the same goes to adults, that if we say that to them, I'm so happy that you're here and I'm so happy that on in this, or I just love watching you and how innovative you are with this, and bringing up those specific compliments that really show that you're paying attention and noticing is just huge.
And to kind of just wrap up that notion, one of the things that I think is really crucial is the idea that when you actually look at the people that you work with and the people that you serve, when they feel valued, they will go to the ends of the earth for you. But when they don't know, like, if they feel you're constantly just trying to change what you're doing, change your practice, I think that actually causes some issues. And so the next question I'm going to talk about, next topic, is this notion of powerful learning first and technology second. And when I actually talk about that, and what we see is actually really important is not just learning first, it's powerful learning first, understanding the opportunities that actually exist in the world today, in what learning actually creates. And the analogy I always use that if I wanted to learn to play the violin, I grew up in small town, Humboldt, Saskatchewan, Canada. Probably many of you have never heard of it. There was no one there that could actually teach me that. But when I actually now I have opportunities to learn off of YouTube and connect in that way. And I think that actually it's not as good as face to face. I'll always take face to face over a connection like that. But how do we actually get people to understand what opportunities for learning do exist now, and then actually figure out what technology is needed for that?
I think, to me, it's all about being, am I giving feedback here? I'll just keep going. But I feel like it's all about being resourceful over your resources. And if we have the mindset where we start with technology, everything else is going to be lackluster and not go up to par based on, and it's really not being as meaningful as what we can make it. And Tony Robbins has this amazing video on TED Talk, and also books that he's written. He mentions this of resourcefulness versus resources. And you can have the best technology, you can have all the money in the world, you can have everything that shines and glimmers. But if you are not resourceful with what you have, to the wayside. And that's what I really try to go first, is think of, what are we trying to learn here? What is our goal? What do the students need? What does each, as you say in the book, what does each learner need? And as I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking of students, I'm thinking of teachers, I'm thinking of all of it. And how can we put it all together to differentiate it based on what they need? And how can we be resourceful as staff, whether we have one-to-one or whether we have nothing? And how can we teach students to also have that same mindset, that no matter what they have, even if they don't have technology or they just have their devices, what can we do with that to support whatever we're doing? But some of the best lessons I've seen, to be honest with you, and part of my role is with technology, but some of the best lessons I've ever seen had very little to do with technology, if nothing. So it's all about the classroom culture that you have and just the energy that you bring forth. And if you're positive and you're happy to be there and you're just craving that learning with your kids, they don't care really if you have all the technology in the world or not. They just want someone to care about them. So, and same goes for adults.
I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the things I find in my a lot is this society created because of technology, that people often say, people love technology. The IT department focuses on technology, the curriculum and instruction, they're focused on learning. But ultimately, we all got into teaching and education to focus on powerful learning. So when you start with that, and that is the core of what you do, people together to do amazing things. No matter where we are and what role we're in, I think if we can focus at the core of powerful learning, what we can all bring to the table, we can then do much better and much greater things. And so that's something that I am always trying to remind people that, yeah, technology is cool and it can do great things, but if we don't have learning at the core, we're going to struggle to do great things in school and get to where we need to.
I love it. That is so good. So on point. I couldn't agree with you more. Seriously, it's
I'm
so
looking
true.
forward to watching this after, because every time you two talk, I'm cutting off my audio so I can hear you, so people can actually hear what's going on. So I apologize if I'm not responding to what you said. I'm trying to make sure that other people actually appreciate and listen to your wisdom. The next notion I'm talking about is this idea of less is more. It's a very crucial component of the book. And it's this idea, basically, you can't do everything. And so we have to be really thoughtful of what initiatives we're actually focusing on in our schools, how we're actually connecting to people, what are we working on, and what are we trying to do where we can focus on depth, not just simply doing everything. So in your experiences, either Katie or Kara, anyone could actually jump in. How are you actually trying to take things off of the plate? And many teachers will say off a platter because there's so much information. How do you actually take these things off of the plate of your teacher so they can go in depth with what they're doing?
So in my role, I don't get I don't work directly with teachers a lot of times. I work with the leadership that's supporting that. And initiative overload is a real thing. I mean, it is insane how many initiatives that people have to deal with. So a lot of times we go to schools and help people think about what is the teaching and learning you want to see? What is the desired strategy to get that student outcome? I'm thinking of a lot of the common initiatives I see lately. Hawkins unit, blended learning, visible thinking or learning. And all of those, if you boil it down, it's about personal and authentic learning. It's about giving students opportunity and agency. So when we start looking at the core of these initiatives, they're all coming from really valuable research and what's best in the classroom. But too often we look at them as separate things, and that's how they get piled up. Instead of pulling out the through lines that go across these initiatives. So I think we need to be really cognizant of what it is that we want to see in our schools and how these initiatives and ways of approaching really meet our goals rather than on different programs and expectations for teachers that are distracting from learning rather than getting to the heart of it.
I love that. I would add on, but I hear your buzzer, so I'll just wait to the next question.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. This is like
no, you're fine. It's fine.
I don't know if I cut you off. You're probably saying the most profound thing, and then my buzzer went off because I'm trying to get everything to work here. The next one we'll talk about is this notion of embracing an open culture. How do you actually get other people to share their ideas? How do you get them to connect in meaningful ways where we start breaking down the walls of the classroom? Because a lot of people say teaching is an extremely isolated profession, and I would totally agree with that. But I don't think it has to be the way it has been. How do you actually start to break down those barriers and build that open culture?
I think Sheryl Sandberg has this amazing notion of leaning in, and it's mainly about women leadership, but it applies to all aspects of what we're talking about here in unleashing talent. And I think you have to, if you know a teacher's or a kid's strength, then you can help them find a seat at the table, as she says, and to feel valued. And I really continue to try to do this. And it takes a cognizant effort to continually try and just make sure that you're cognizant of that. So as far as doing that, I feel that I try, after you know a teacher's strengths or a kid's strength, you can help them lean in and either help lead a PD session or brainstorm with you on different ideas that you have or that they have. And if you know who they are and what they stand for, it's much easier to help them join in the conversation and to also be a part of learning that can transcend beyond their classroom, because there's so many amazing ideas in schools. And I think there's a problem if we're connected with everyone in the world on Twitter, but we don't know what someone's doing in the classroom next to us. There's an issue there. And I feel that at my school, there's so many teachers that are, and we're doing a loop, which is also a really cool thing too. So there's a K1 loop, a 2-3, and so on and so forth. So the teachers will be with their classes for 2 years, which kind of lends itself to collaborating with everyone, which I really have liked that idea thus far. And I think our teachers, a lot of them have just, as I watch them and connecting with other grade levels and what are you doing and doing things with different grade levels in classes. The other day I saw the 4th grade outside and they were doing a science experiment, and kindergarten came out, and they're like, come on over. And the 4th graders started showing the kindergartners what they were doing. And it's just those little things that schools do that I think really makes an impact of making everyone feel like we're all together for the greater good and we have one purpose and one vision.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things is to get teachers out of their classrooms, administrators out of their offices, and people to see what's happening, and celebrate and learn from each other. I agree with you. If you're connected with everybody else that's happening in your school, then there's a problem. We need to be really connected to one another and supporting. And one other thing, just on this, a teacher said to me the other day, I'm afraid to share my lessons because they're not perfect. I'm afraid to get feedback from someone that they're not going to work and they won't be perfect. So how are we shifting that culture from perfection to something about learning, so they're not really book where people are afraid to share. I think is a really important way or a concept in order to move forward and go open.
Yes, I love that. And I think what you said just goes right back to being vulnerable. And instead of asking yourself, am I good enough or am I perfect? What am I doing that I'm proud of? And then what am I doing that I can grow on and improve? And if we have that positive growth innovators mindset, so many things just fall into place. It's amazing that if you really lead with that positive outlook, how all the other worries and all the other things just kind of go to the side.
Okay, so the last one, I have no idea what you guys just talked about. I can't wait to watch the podcast after. I'm so sorry. I feel horrible. But the last one we're going to talk about, I know Katie is an expert on this, and I've been pushing her to write a book on the topic. Is how do you actually create meaningful learning experiences for educators? How do you actually create the experiences that you want for your students in the professional learning of your teaching?
Go ahead, Kara.
All right, cool. Since he said you were the expert, I'm like, go ahead, Katie, but I'll go ahead and go. So it's definitely in my role, and before I've led PD sessions and led things on district levels with different initiatives and different groups. But in this role too, I also continue to see how important professional development is. And for me, it's just the sit and get just does not work. And anytime that you can connect learning outside of ourselves, just like we do for students, whether you ask an expert to join in through a Google Hangout or you Periscope it, how you can extend your learning. Because like I was kind of insinuating before, there's so many things that are going on that's amazing in our class and amazing at the school, but if we don't really share it, no one can really learn from each other to the level that we could. So I really think it's just important to have that PD that facilitates that collaboration while joining in other people. And in general, also kind of lend itself to what I was saying earlier, as far as having other people join in. So once you know their strengths, have them come in, have them lead a session, or think outside the box, do a breakout box, or do something that you think are strong with or that they're knowledgeable about, and bring that to the table to kind of liven up, give that energy into PD or whatever you're doing with collab sessions, and to extend that so people aren't just sitting down, that they're learning and doing activities that students really would be doing in the classroom. And I think I've been brainstorming it in my head. There's teachers at my school that are doing Genius Hour, which teachers, it's such a popular thing right now. And how can we extend things like that to where teachers can dive into their passions and share their passions on a non-educational level, but somehow transcend their passions and what they are knowledgeable about into their work. And I just think there's so many things that are so important about PD, and every minute is a minute in gold when it comes to professional development, because teachers have so much to do.
I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the things that I tend to focus on a lot is professional development isn't just a thing or a day or a workshop. When we think about supporting teachers, when we think about professional learning and all of the experiences, visiting classrooms, getting coaching, working with peers, reading blogs, reading books, all of this needs to be part of the learning experience. When we talk about research that is old and still very prevalent, and they talk about only about 20% of teachers will implement something that they learn from a conference, even if it's great, even if it's super hands-on, even if it's modeling the best practices. But until we have opportunities to try new things, to get coaching and to have this ongoing learning process, much of it doesn't make its way to his classroom. And so thinking beyond an event to really looking at learning as a process is something that I really push people to think about.
I love how you said that, Katie, is thinking of it just in that mindset where reading blogs and thinking outside the box, because too often we just think of a Google slideshow or a PowerPoint as the staple to what we do at PDs or faculties. And although you can use slides to help facilitate learning, there's so much more that can be done, and there's a world out there that sometimes we don't tap into. And it's because sometimes we have these schemas, and we try to categorize everything and what we think PD looks like and what we think it should be, and if it doesn't look like this, it's not real learning. And I think that's amazing, also us learning from kids, because sometimes in the past, and when I've had students lead different sessions in the classroom, and when I've asked them to teach, and I see their creativity because they don't know what PD looks like. they don't know what that leadership teaching looks like. So I've tried to think of it as that aspect too, and to try not to have all these schemas and all of these guards up of how it should be, and to really just blast the doors wide open on it, and to do what you think your teachers need, and to do what you think would help them learn.
And so we're going to jump into the notion, the questions that people are asked. So this is the last part of the show. We're going to take 2 questions. The first one is from Holly Christian. And I've known Holly for a while. She's actually in Fairmont, Minnesota. Her Twitter handle is @HChristian. And so she asked this: sometimes the biggest obstacles in being innovative are parents and administration. What are strategies others using to educate and inform these groups so our innovative ideas and people have a chance to complete the process and show impact on students? I'll give just kind of my 2 cents on this. One of the things that I think is very crucial when you are actually working with parents is, do you just tell them things that you're going to do, or are they brought into the learning? Do you share the learning with them? Do you actually do you invite, and Katie and Kara, I'm sure, give great ideas on professional learning, but I never said to mute my mic or my headphones. But are parents ever invited to them? Do they see the things that you're doing? Do they actually see your thinking? We got rid of awards at the school, and we didn't have any parent pushback, which is kind of a crazy thing because it's so steeped in tradition. But we didn't just say we're getting rid of awards. We actually showed the thinking as we went through that process. And there's a lot of research that shows that this is actually really bad for kids. And so how do you bring parents in on the learning of your classrooms, not just on telling them what you're going to do? So any thoughts, Katie or Kara?
Well, from my perspective as a parent, I think it's so important, and I've talked about this a little last week. We need to suspend the judgment and assumption of what other people want, and think about coming together and think about what we want for our kids, and creating that environment and those experiences together as parents, community, school members. Because too often we think we know, or we do because we think that someone expects it, rather than thinking, what is the environment we want kids to learn in, and how do we all work together to create that? So I would just bring them in and just tell them what you're doing. Let's have conversations and let's talk on each other to think about how we can do something new and better.
I love that. And I think we always say to staff and to families that our door is always open for you. Our door is always open, but that's just a metaphor. And we really have to show through our actions and through what we're doing and through our words and through our pulse of our building that we're really giving that, and that's really rings true to who we are. Because if you say our door's always open, people are only going to feel like they can come to you if there's a problem. And you have to invite them in and not assume anything. I think too often we assume what parents know and what they don't know, and we forget to think of what they can bring and what they can offer to the table. There's so many experts with parents and knowledge and background and perspectives that they could bring to our students that could help our students and ourselves grow as learners. So to help and think about how can we bring them in, how can we help them have a seat at the table, and how can we just transcend this environment where it's a community and it's not about a door being open, it's about our whole community is open. Let's all learn together, let's do this together, we're here for the kids, and having that clear purpose and vision moving forward.
And so here we were just having that conversation, and someone took my thinking by saying, instead of bringing people to the table, how are you bringing the table to them? And that's kind of helped me shift my thinking too about not only opening the doors, but how are you going to them and saying, we really want to invite you to this conversation. And so I love that.
I love that too, about bringing the table to them, because there's so many ways that there's so many things that we can do to connect the learning and to bring it to wherever they are, and to think of different opportunities and ways to do this. And often, like I said before, if we just have our own background and our own experiences and we don't really think of these ways where we don't try it out, we're really never going to learn it. So it takes really just failing endlessly to figure out how to best fit parents. And that's going to constantly evolve as we evolve as communities, and as we go through the years. Technology is going to change, things are going to change. So we just have to constantly think of how can we keep trying and evolve with this.
And the thing that I'll just kind of add on to Kara, just finish up there, is how do you actually focus on not only parent engagement, but parent empowerment? Do they actually have a voice in the things that are going on in your school? And are you, like as I said earlier, bringing them in on these situations? And so the last question I'll focus on is from John Bennett in Midlothian, Virginia at JCBJR. He says, I'm a strong advocate of students working in teams in no small part because of the boost to innovation. What's been the response feedback with respect to teaming versus individual efforts? I will just add a short thought on this. I know that I actually do very well in isolation, that I need a lot of time when I'm working on my own. And I think that when you focus on collaboration too much, it actually takes away from someone who, I know this might sound weird, someone who is quite introverted and needs that space to kind of just think and to process and to do those certain things. So where do you guys find that balance of actually, you know, getting kids to like share their learning, to connect with others, but where they actually have some time to like, you know, just kind of delve and reflect on their own?
I think a lot of it depends on the activity and the learning and where you're trying to go and your individual students, because I don't think there's a one size fits all. I think we all believe that as educators, that you can't say, if you do this activity, it has to be singular. If you do this activity, it has to be at the group or cross group where we go between different classes. I don't think there's a one size fits all. And I think it really goes down to asking your kids, what do you need? What helps you learn best as a learner, and how can I help serve you and support you? And I think if you don't ask those questions, you really don't know. We can assume and try to build those connections and ideas for ourselves on what we think, but unless we really ask them, we don't know. And that's what I really try to do, is just get on the student's level. And if I do start understanding these questions, then I can best serve them. And I'm with you, George. I am so energetic and outgoing, but I need a lot of time to work on my own too, because I reflect constantly. I'm a sponge like you guys are, and I reflect, and I can't stop reflecting. And I need that time sometimes to be on my own and just contain all my thoughts and to think. So that's a really good point, that collaboration is crucial, but it's not everything. Also, there's something to be said for time spent reflecting and working alone too, to kind of regain that perspective.
And I think I tend to process out loud, and so that's my first way is I talk with people, think about it, then go back. But I totally agree with both of you. There has to be a balance. And because everybody is unique, I'll take it back to the beginning of the conversation. We have to know our strengths, and we have to know who we are as individuals. And so helping know their strengths and their styles and how they work together can be a really powerful way of helping them tread those waters and figure out when they need time alone and they want to work with other people, because it's going to be a balance on the learning tasks and which those are. So I think we just need to create space in the classroom to allow people to make those choices and have opportunities to do it in different ways to make them.
I love that, Katie. It's so true. And just the whole idea that George mentioned of engaging versus empowerment. And if we just constantly have kids be complacent with what we're doing and we don't empower them to do what's best, because even in one activity or one day, if you just say, we're going to do this, this, and this, without giving them the opportunity to choose and do what's best for them, then they'll never know. And I think we have to feel vulnerable yet again and open ourselves up to letting kids try. I mean, that same goes with flexible seating and everything else. They don't know what's best for them as even a learner in a seating arrangement unless they try everything out. The same goes for working in groups and working solo. And I love how you also said talking about your thinking, because I do that a lot too, where I just say something out loud. I'm like, oh, okay. And then you just have that light bulb moment. And I love your perspective on different approaches based on the situation and the learner. That's perfect.
Well, I want to thank you too for being here, Kara. I'm so sorry because there's like so many people tweeting about how awesome you are, and like I swear to God, I'm totally blaming Marriott Internet for this. But I just want to kind of acknowledge some people that are actually listening. Joel Sliker mentioning about how you're talking about teachers participating in Genius Hours to enhance their learning. What's interesting is I'm actually, because I'm like turning off my audio, I'm actually finding out what you guys are talking about through people tweeting about it. So that's actually helping me kind of do this, because every time I turn my audio, the feedback is terrible. So I've turned off my audio into this. So, you know, innovative way to actually, you know, try to figure out how to actually do this. Nikki Davison, we need to stop being so humble. It's for the betterment of our students. Great question to ask. There's one here. Maureen Cadola. I don't know where she's from. Let's see where she is. And I'm just looking at her, and she says only 20% of people implement something they've learned at a conference. That's a very fascinating thing, and I don't know the validity or the accuracy of that statement, but I wouldn't argue it. And if I heard it, it's kind of interesting, you know, what people are actually doing. And so just kind of, Susan Spellman-Con, I always say her name wrong. Thank you for listening, as you always do. Kara, do you have any final words you want to kind of maybe to inspire some people, you know, after the session, where they can connect with you, where they can find you?
Yeah, so thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I just think going forward, if we all just honor and value and inspire each other, we can just build together teams across our schools, across the nation, that can do amazing things for kids and our staff. And that's really what it's all about, is just continually improving and inspiring each other. And when we have that vibe, we'll just never stop doing amazing things. You can find me at karawelty.com on my website. So it's KARAWELTY.com, or my Twitter handle is at Kara, KARA_Welty, WELTY. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, George. I really appreciate it. Even with the audio issues, it's an amazing experience. So thank you for having me.
Well, we loved it, Kara. Thank you. You have been amazing in spite of all of the technical glitches. Your energy, your just expertise has really been great to have on the show. So thanks for joining us. And for the rest of the crew, we look forward to your blogs and your reflections and all that you share this week based on what you're reading. And we're looking at unleashing talent, and we're really clear with what you're doing in your own settings, and we look forward to connecting. All right. Have a great week.
Bye. Thank you.
Hey, sorry, I didn't mean to do this. I meant, Katie, give me this when you're done, because I can't see what's going on. I have no idea what's going on. I'm sure both of you said awesomely inspirational things. I cannot wait to listen to both of you, because I have no idea what just happened this entire show. And I'm so sorry, because I did not mean to cut Katie off. I'm like, give me the sign. But that totally backfired. Anyways, thanks for listening. I hope you got something on it. Please connect with both Kara and Katie after this. They're both amazing educators. Thanks for your time. Sorry about the audio, but we did our best. So hopefully you got something out of it. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.